Welcome. Good morning. It is currently 6:16 a.m. Monday. So, Mr. G had to make a quick video to work with this with you. So let's go on. All right. It says a focus on square roots. All right. So that's the game plan. It's what do we do in these equations, right? If we have, you guys are so used to, let's say, if you have 6x is equal to 42, solve for x and then you divide both sides by x. And then we just did some crazy stuff where if you have x over x plus 1 plus 2x over x plus 2 is equal to, I don't know, 3 over x squared plus 4, something like that, solve for x, right? So the new thing that we need to do is what happens if we have a square root? So it'll start off slow, like I'm pretty sure you have a good idea of how to do these 4 questions. But why don't you start off with this? For exercises 1 to 4, describe each step taken to solve the equation. So just how did you go from one move to the next move? And then check to see if the solution is valid. Okay? Make sure that's happening. Make sure that you are seeing if there are any extraneous solutions. Okay? Because they may happen when you're configuring these things around. Okay, so pause the video, try and do the questions by yourself. Let's say you're back and you want to see what happened. Okay, so for the first thing, let's look at number 1. What did they do first? You had x square root of x minus 6 equals 4. What did they do? They add 6 to both sides, right? Okay, and then how do you go from this move to this move? Basically, you can square both sides. Square both sides. And now let's check. Is x equals 100, if we plug it into the original, is square root of 100 minus 6 equal to 4? Right? Let's check. Well, square root of 100 is 10, and 10 minus 6 equals 4. 4 equals 4, so life is good. Okay, what about the next one? Here we have cube root of x minus 6 equals 4. Now the first thing they did was they add 6 to both sides. And then when you add 6 to both sides, the next thing they did to go from cube root of x equals 10 to this step, they cube both sides. Okay, so what do? They add 6 on both sides first. Then here they cube both sides. Okay, and now you have x is equal to 1,000 because what is it? The cube root of x cube, that's x, and 10 cube is 1,000. So let's put in that 1,000. What is the cube root of 1,000 minus 6? Does that equal 4? Question mark. Well, the cube root of 1,000 is 10 because 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 is 1,000. 10 minus 6 does equal 4. So 4 equals 4. So here you're allowed to do that. Okay. Next one. Square root of x plus 6. So they didn't show you the steps, but remember, you want to always, what you want to do is, you see here when we squared both sides, right? Oh, this should be a square here. When we cubed both sides, we made sure that the radical, right, was by itself. So you see here, you have the square root of x. Let's get that square root of x by itself. So here, what you're going to do is minus 6 minus 6. So you have square root of x is equal to minus 2, right? And then what do? You just square both sides. Square both sides. And then when you square both sides, here you have to realize, maybe I should have showed you over here, but if you have square root of x squared, right? That is equal to square root of x times square root of x. And if you're thinking, Mr. G, why does that equal x? Well, here we have to go back where if I say x to the 1/2, just for now, if this confuses you, raise your hand, but x to the 1/2 is equal to square root of x. Okay, we talked about that many times. So here, if you have square root of x times the square root of x, you could transform these to x to the 1/2 times x to the 1/2, and that's equal to x to the 1, because here you're adding the exponents. A half plus a half, that equals 1. So this is x to the half times x to the half, which is equal to x to the 1, which is equal to x. These two things are equivalent. Okay. It's very important that you understand this clearly, and if you don't, just raise your hand and I will show you. So here, that's what's happening here. It's that square root of x squared. These two cancel out, right? So that's x, and this is equal to 4. But let's stop. Let's just check to see if this works, right? If you plug in that 4, the square root of 4 plus 6, does that equal 4? Question mark. And the square root of 4, well, that is 2 plus 6 equals 4. 8 does not equal 4. So here, that x equals 4 is what we talked about being an extraneous solution. So this is an extraneous solution. This does not work. And if you're thinking, well, let's see, did we break any rules? Did we see we subtracted 6 on both sides? We didn't break any rules. You're allowed to do that. We squared both sides. You're allowed to do that. So when do extraneous solutions happen? When you manipulate some equations, by squaring both sides, right? Or, sometimes when you manipulate these equations, sometimes you get these extraneous solutions. So we always have to check for them, okay? Let's do this question over here. Minus 6, and now you have cube root of x is equal to minus 2, right? And now here, if we cube both sides, and here, remember, cube root of x, that is equal to x to the 1/3. So if you cube both sides, these two, this cancels. X is equal to, look, this is x to the 1/3 plus, times x to the 1/3 times x to the 1/3, right? And that just becomes x equals x to the 1, x equals x, okay? So that's happening here. And if that was really fast, just raise your hand and I'll show it to you again. But here, this cancels, so this is x, and this is equal to minus 8. Okay, x equals minus 8. But now let's just double check to see if this is okay. If we put negative 8 into the original, cube root of negative 8 plus 6, does that equal 4? Cube root of negative 8 is negative 2, because negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, so that's okay. Plus 6 equals 4, and 4 does equal 4, and that is okay. So we didn't have an extraneous solution like last time. Alright, so what I'd like you to do is try and do the next question by yourself. And it's that same idea. You always want to square. You see this like square root? Get it by itself. Here it has a minus 2. Get 2 to the other side. So to show you the solution, let's see, plus 2, right? Because that's what you want to do first. Then you have square root of 3x plus 5 is equal to 1. Okay? And then what do? Here, you want to square both sides. And now here, the square root and the square cancel out. So that's 3x plus 5 is equal to 1. And just to show you again, look, square root of 3x plus 5, that is equal to, real quick, that is equal to 3x plus 5. It's the whole thing, it's that whole 3x plus 5 to the 1/2. These two are equivalent, okay? And if you square this, right, if you square both of them, that just becomes 3x plus 5. And the same thing happens here where you're adding, where was it? Here. When you're adding 1/2 times 1/2, it'll be the same thing, and these two cancel. So they are equal to each other. Okay. Okay, so then you have 3x plus 5 is equal to 1. You minus 5, and then 3x is equal to minus 4. And then you divide 3, and x is equal to minus 4 over 3. Okay, and if you're thinking, oh man, I don't like my answer, well, sometimes you get fractions. So what I'd like you to do is, if you want, check it just to make sure. Okay, Let's see. Here are some questions for you to practice the skill of multiplying and these are just practicing your skills with square root signs, okay? So what I'll do is I'm not going to show you how to do them just yet. I'll probably do that for a video for tomorrow, but for the students who are watching this video today, try and do these questions, and whenever you finish or you're stuck, just raise your hand and let me know, and then that's it. We'll work on it together. Okay, see you.